Okay, I'm going to get started now. Again, my name is Valerie Smith, and I am the technology librarian here at the Parsippany Library, and I'll be taking you through this class on Word today. I'd like to apologize for yesterday's abrupt ending. We had a technical issue here, and I couldn't get the program restarted, so I decided the best approach was just to reschedule for the next day. This program will also be available on our YouTube channel when it's finished. They usually upload it within a day or two from the after the class, and they are working currently on getting a playlist together of all the library technology programs, so you'll be able to find them all in one place. Okay, so what I'm going to do here for the rest of the class is I'm going to keep you muted. I will pause periodically to ask if you have any questions. If you do at that point in time, you will find there's a little button on your screen that says you can raise your hand. When you do that, I will unmute you so you can ask your question and I will try to answer it. So I'm going to share my screen with you and get started with Microsoft Word. Okay, so here we are in Word. I'm going to start today by creating a blank document, clicking right here. And just to give you a little overview of the screen as we're looking at right now, up here we have what's called the ribbon. That's this whole section up here. The ribbon is divided into a series of tabs. You'll see these up here. Right now we're in the Home tab, but there's also Insert, Design, Layout, etc. And when you click on these tabs, the commands that are visible in the ribbon will change. Now, for this class, we're going to spend most of our time working in the Home tab, but we might go into one of the other ones at once or twice. Okay, so what we're going to be starting doing today is I'm going to be writing a letter for a fundraiser. This letter will be used next week when we do our mail merge class, but we're not going to be covering any of the mail merge aspects of this today. We're just going to be doing the letter writing part of this. It's going to be 2 pages. It's going to have a numbered list. It's going to have headers, and it's going to have a form we're going to do on the second page that we're going to design using a table. So I'm going to show you a different way to use a table than just listing a bunch of things. I'm going to use a table to show you how you can create a form within Word. So let's get started right at the top, and that will be with the header. So I am going to go into the Insert tab here, and then I'm going to go to the command for header right here. And I'm just going to start with a simple blank header right here. Okay, so now we're in the header, and I want you to take a look up here at the top of the screen. Well, looks like my zoom bar is in the way. And you'll see here we now have a new tab. It's called Header and Footer Tools. And this is what's known as a contextual tab. And contextual tabs are tabs you will only see when you're working on a certain part of a document. So for example, we're working in the header, we can now see the Header and Footer Tools tab. If we leave the header, that tab disappears. So to get back into the header, we can just double click here, brings us back in, and again, our tab comes back here. One of the things I want to notice here is that when you create a header, you're also in effect creating a footer at the same time. Now, headers and footers will go together. And for the most part, this isn't an issue, but it is going to be an issue in this particular document. Because what we want to do here is we want to have the header on both pages of the document, but we only want to have the footer on the second page. So to do that, right at the beginning, we just have to check a box. And that's one right up here where it says different first page. And this is just going to tell Word that the first header on a first page is going to be different from the headers on the rest of the page, rest of the pages of the document. So let's start with that header. I'm going to go back to the Home tab. And I'm going to actually use a bit of a fancy font in our header. Don't usually do this, but I am going to do it for this particular document. And that's going to be the Castellar font. And the only place I'm going to be using it is right here in the header. And I'm also going to make it so this text is bold. And it's going to be, let's do 14 point. And then I'm just going to take the name of the organization that is going to be holding this fundraiser. And I want you to notice that the text is all in caps. This is not because the caps lock is on in my computer. This particular font only does capital letters. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing a document, that there are some fonts that will only do capital letters. Okay, so now that we got that done, we're going to go back to a normal font. So I'm going to switch back to Calibri and take the font size down to 11 point. And then I'm going to work on the next line of my header. It's going to be the address. And I may be tempted here to hit enter and then put the city and state in, but that's not going to work because I want to put over on the right-hand margin of our header, I want to put the phone number. So I'm going to hit the tab key twice to move over to that margin and then enter in the phone number. Now I'm going to go down and then I'm going to put in the city and state for our thing. And then finally over here, I'm going to put the website. Okay, so now we've got the header all in place. I also want to add a border that's going to go between the header and the rest of the document. And to do that, I'm going to go over to this paragraph section here in the ribbon. And I'm going to go here, that's the borders command, and we'll be using this a lot later when we work on our form. I'm going to go down here, and I'm not going to go all the way down to this last option, the borders and shading option. This is because, much like my fancy font, I want a bit of a fancy border to separate the two things. And I'm going to use this double line here. And I just want that to be the bottom border. So I'm going to put that here. Oops, I'm going to get rid of these borders and then just add the bottom one. And click on OK. And now that line is in place underneath our header. Okay, so that is all we have to do to create our header. Are there any questions? Okay, Abby, what's your question?
So my question is, so I have two questions. First is, how do you get the link to be like blue?
So that's actually an automatic setting within Word, and it'll typically, if you put in something it recognizes as either a website or an email address, it'll do that automatically.
Okay, and then how can I remove the red squiggly lines?
Okay, the red squiggly lines, that's just that's the spelling and grammar check, and it's just looking at these words and saying I don't recognize them. And actually, you know, that's actually a good thing. This is a good place to actually go over spelling and grammar. So like I said, it's marking these words as being spelled wrong. They're not. This is how I want them to be spelled, but they're not common words that the program is recognizing. So let's make it so that it knows that this is a correct word. So we're going to be using this again and again and again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to go to add to dictionary. And now that word is in the dictionary and it shouldn't flag it again for a spelling error. I'm going to do the same thing here because again, I don't think it's going to show up again, but having in the dictionary, we won't have that spelling error again. So yeah, so that's the red lines are just spelling and grammar errors, and you can just look and take care of them how you want. You can also run a full spell check at the end, but we'll be doing that once we have an actual letter to work on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to move on now, and we're going to go into the area underneath and into the main body of the letter. Okay. So now we're out of the header, and we're ready to start typing our letter. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the date that this letter was written. But instead of typing out the date, we're going to put in what's called a field code. And a field code is a piece of text that you can put in a document that tells Word to insert some particular element there. In this case, today's date. It could be the file name. It could be the page number. There's a whole bunch of different things that Word will insert automatically into a document. We're going to start with just the date. So I'm going to go back to the Insert tab. And from here, we're going to go to, where is it? Maybe it's not an insert. place where it would be. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it looks like the screen has actually, so this is sort of an interesting thing. When I was working on creating this class, I was working on a much bigger monitor than what I'm doing now. And as you can see here, what happens when you change your monitor size is Word will sometimes scrunch up the menus and they'll get rid of some of the words. So I'm looking for date and time and I'm not seeing it, but here it is. It's just that it's just a symbol. There's no longer the words date and time there. So we want to work here with this insert date and time. And then from this list, it's giving you a bunch of different formats. You can pick out what the date format you like. I'm going to pick this one down here, the third one through. And then there's a box here that says update automatically. And what this means is if I check this box, whenever I open this document again, it'll change the date to whatever that date, the new day is. So if I do this and I open the document tomorrow, it'll say June 24th, 2021. If I open it a week from now, it'll be like July 1st, 2021, and so on. This can be very useful if you're doing things like form letters or even like your cover letter for a resume or something like that, where you want to have the current date on it. This means it'll always update regardless of where you when you open it, and you won't have to worry about, not changing the date on it or something like that. If you have a letter that you're writing that for whatever reason needs to have a fixed date on it, you shouldn't use the update automatically method because that won't work. But if you are doing something where you're going to be doing a form letter or something where you're opening it periodically and updating it, this is a very useful time-saving trick. So I'm going to say update automatically, click on OK, and now you see the date is in place right there. Okay, so I'm just going to go down a couple lines. More, a little more space. And then I'm going to start typing in the first paragraph of the letter. Okay, so we got another case of spelling not being happy, so I'm just going to add that to the dictionary as well. I'm also going to add something else. So let's say this summer day trail run is a trademarked event. So we're going to add a trademark symbol to this document. What we're going to do here is we're going to first put our cursor where we want the trademark symbol to appear. We're in the Insert tab, and we're going to go all the way over here to where we have this Insert a Symbol menu. I'm going to click on that drop-down arrow, and one of the symbols we have right there is the trademark sign. But just to look around here, you'll see other ones like we have the euro sign, the pound sign, the copyright symbol. There's a couple of math things. There's a symbol for infinity if you ever need that. Smiley face. But there's a bunch of little different symbols here. If you click on more symbols, you'll see that there are a lot more available to you. This is where you can find this is where you can find characters for foreign languages, numbers, all sorts of things are available within here. So those are there. If for example, you are typing in a foreign language and you need a letter with a diacritical mark, you'll find them here. You can also add what's called a shortcut key. So if you have a symbol you use repeatedly within a document, you can you can assign it to a shortcut key. Usually it's a combination of like Control or Shift or Alt together with a letter or another key. And once you do that, whenever you're typing and you need to insert that character, you just hit the shortcut key. You don't have to go into the click on the symbol, find it in the list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can assign a shortcut key to symbols if you use them a lot. We're just going to use the trademark one. I'm just going to drop that there. Click on Insert, and it's there now down in my document. And once I'm done, I'm just going to close this window. Okay. So now I'm going to continue typing in the next part of the letter. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in what's called a numbered list. And it's a little different from the bulleted list in that it has numbers instead of bullets. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will also automatically redo the numbers if you move elements around within it. So I'm going to go to the Home tab and go up here to the numbered list icon. If I click on this little arrow next to it, I can look at different formatting for numbers. So if I want, periods after the number, if I want parentheses after the number, if I want to use letters instead of numbers or Roman numerals, there's all sorts of different variations I can have here. I'm just going to go simple with this one. And I'm going to type in the first item of my list. Okay, so that is the last item in our list. But when I hit the Enter key, I get number 4. So the list is continuing. This is very similar to how bulleted lists will behave in pretty much the same way. So you can sit there, you're thinking right-clicking, clicking on this, clicking on that. What menu item do I go to stop the list? You don't have to do any of that. If I hit the Enter key again without typing anything after the 4, the list ends. So all you ever have to do to end a list, be it a bulleted one or a numbered one, is just hit the Enter key twice at the end of it. Okay, so is there any questions? Okay, yes, Abby, what's your question? Oops, I think I clicked, sorry, I think I moved there. Sorry, what's your question?
Yeah, so when we add a word to the dictionary and then we create another document, so are we creating another dictionary with the words not included, or are the words like included?
I think when you're creating it, when you add something to the dictionary, it's for that computer. So any document you create on that computer will have the same dictionary.
So how do I make it so that only for that document is it not, it's not showing that?
I'm not sure you can.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't looked into it in great detail, possibly because whenever I've done something where I've been adding to the dictionary, I've usually wanted it for the whole computer. Then I haven't really had to do it for just one document. Let me just take a quick look. And this is another thing, the spelling and grammar check function is in the review tab because it can be hard to find because it's doesn't necessarily make sense. Let's just let me run the check. Yeah, I don't think that you can customize a dictionary for a single document. I think it's for the computer itself, not one document. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue. Okay, so for the next paragraph in this document, we're actually going to be taking the text from a different source. So say someone emailed me and there's a piece of text they wanted to include in the document, and I want to get that text from the email over into this document. It's very simple. I'm going to go to the email, and I'm going to have it. This is the letter right here, and this is our paragraph we're going to be using. So I'm going to select that text, and then I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go over here to Word, and I'm going to paste that text here by clicking here. Now, notice something happened here. It's a different color than the text. Than the text that was originally in the document. The font size is also a little different. Now, obviously, that's a problem. We want this text to match. And there's a couple of different things you can do. You can reselect the text and change it, or you could use the format painter to change it. What we're going to do is something that's a little different. So I'm going to undo my paste. And instead of just pasting the text, I'm going to look here and click on the arrow underneath paste. And this gives you a couple different options. So you have this one, this is the default one, which says keep source formatting, which means it's going to make the text look exactly like it did from the place where I copied it from. You also have here the merge formatting, which will sort of put the two formattings together. And finally, the keep text only option. And this is the one I'm going to use, because what this means is by keeping it's only going to paste the text itself. It's not going to bring over any of the formatting, and the document will just revert to and the text will just revert to the original the formatting in this document by saying keep text only. Okay, so now we have our paragraph in place. And that keep text only option can be really useful when you're copying and pasting stuff from the web where there might be unusual coding or there's some other thing going on with the formatting. Just bringing over the text alone will help a lot. Okay, so we do have another spelling thing. Oops, sorry about that. So we do have another spelling thing. It's obviously not recognizing Skyholds, but as it's recognizing Skyhold, because notice here, Skyhold's underlined here, but the issue here, notice it's a blue underline, not a red. That means it's a grammar issue and not a spelling issue. In this case, the grammar issue is fairly simple. There's an extra space in there they want us to fix, so I'm just going to click on that and fix that. But notice here, Skyhold itself doesn't get flagged by the dictionary, but Skyholds does. So again, this shows you the dictionary is a little bit flexible. Interesting, what's this other grammar issue they have here? I think that's spacing as well. Okay, so yeah, so I just fixed those two grammar errors. And I'm just going to leave this here. I'm not going to add Skyholds to the dictionary. It's not necessary. But you could do something else instead, which is instead of adding to the dictionary, you could also just say ignore. And actually, this would be the answer to your adding to the dictionary for one document. If you pick ignore all, it'll ignore all the that particular word spelling throughout the entire document, but it's not the same as adding it to the dictionary because that would only be in this document. So it's not the same thing as adding to the dictionary for only one document, but it would work effectively in the exact same way, because if you tell it to ignore all instances of this word in this document, it will take care of that for the whole document and not go into the dictionary. So that is another option you have. Okay, last thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the sign off. Okay, so we're having a little issue here with this line spacing, and this is a default spacing issue that you find in Word, where it puts extra space between what's known as paragraphs. And it's important to note that what Word considers a paragraph is every time you hit the Enter key. So if you don't hit the Enter, so that's why when you're typing straight across, you don't hit the Enter key at every end of every line, because when you do that, Word considers that a paragraph. And that is important for certain formatting options, particularly alignments like left, center, and right. It can only be alignments can only be changed on a paragraph basis. They can't be changed like font can be, like on every single word or every single character. Certain changes can only be done on an paragraph basis. So right now, as far as words concerned, Sincerely is a paragraph, Evelyn Trevelyan is a paragraph, and Grand Inquisitor is a paragraph. So what we want to do here is fix the spacing so that there isn't this extra space between the name and the title. The way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to select these two. I'm going to go up to this paragraph section of the ribbon again, and I'm going to pull out this menu here. This is the paragraph settings. So this lets you get into more detailed space. And I'm going to be doing that here. Just give me a sec. There is our problem down here. It's in the spacing area. So you see here, this is the spacing where it says before and it's 0 points, but after is 8 points. So it wants to put 8 points of space between each line. We're going to change it in this case back down to 0. I'm going to say OK. And now we no longer have that extra spacing in there. OK. So do you have any questions? Okay. Okay, so what's your question?
Yeah, so my question is, so it's a little unrelated. So in the WordPad, the WordPad thing.
WordPad, yes.
Yeah, so there is like this paint drawing, add a paint drawing option. So is there anything like that in Word?
Oh, I actually am going to go and do a picture just in a minute, but that's not quite the same thing as add a paint drawing. Microsoft Paint is a separate design program on the computer. And hold on, I'm trying to find. So you could, if you go in, what they're doing there is letting you link directly to Paint. I don't use Paint very often because it's a very basic program that's not terribly easy to use. But would that be it? So now we're going to go now into adding a picture to this document. If you just give me a second, I need to get that picture up so I can do that. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're back in our letter and we want to add a picture. And I actually want to add it up at the top here. So I'm going to put my cursor approximately where I want the picture to go. I want it to go up near the date. And then I'm going to go to the Insert tab again here. And we have two picture options here. So you have pictures and you have online pictures. There's a bunch of other stuff, but we're just working with pictures right now. And what the difference is, pictures lets you browse for a picture on your computer. Whereas online pictures will take you out to Bing and you can search for a picture there. So if you don't have a picture you want to use and you just want to search for something, you can use that and you can pick up a picture there. Remember, if you're doing anything that's going to be published or especially put on the web, you do have to make sure that whatever picture you use, if you're going out and searching the web for it, is not under copyright by someone because it could be a problem for you. But we're just going to have the picture saved on our computer. I'm going to go there. It's going to let me browse for a picture. Mine's in the pictures folder. And then I'm going to go here, and that is our logo right there. And I'm going to go insert it there. Okay. So this is actually, we're pretty good here in terms of size. If we wanted to resize the picture, there is two different ways you can do that. One is to do it manually just by stretching or going back and forth on one side. There's also over here, absolute. So if you knew exactly what size you wanted the picture to be, let's say we want it to be 1.5 inches high, you can do that and it will do that automatically there. It'll also keep, did I undo the aspect ratio? Okay, so I'm setting that actually now at 1 inch there. And this is resizing it. And you also see you have a crop option. And I just want you to make sure you know that cropping and resizing a picture is different things. When you're resizing a picture, you're either growing or shrinking it. But when you're cropping a picture, you're effectively taking a pair of scissors to it and cutting around it. So when you crop a picture, you're actually removing part of the picture, which is different from resizing it where you're just making it bigger or smaller. So it's just important to keep in mind that those two things mean two different things. So our picture is actually a good size, but it's not in the right location. I want it to be over on the right-hand side of the document. So I'm going to change the position, and you can just drag it around. I don't like doing that in Word because it tends to do very strange things with the text. So I'm going to use this here, which lets me pick an absolute position for it. So I'm going to go up here to the position option, click on it, and I want to put it in the upper right corner. So I'm just going to click in there. And you notice it's saying here it's under with text wrapping. And what this means is just the text will fill in the space next to the picture. It won't be lined up with the bottom of the picture, because if it's in line with text, you'll notice here the text is lined up with the bottom of the picture. Whereas if I do it with the text wrapping, even if I put on the left, that text will fill in the space to the side of the picture. Okay, so our picture is now in place. And I want to draw your attention right now. Oops, it's going to show me. Yeah. Okay, unfortunately, when I get out of the mouse, it's not showing me the thing I want. So I'm going to just hope you see it right here. Notice this little blue anchor right there. When Word puts a picture into a document, it drops what's called an anchor in the document. And the picture is positioned relative to that anchor. And most of the time, knowing that the anchor, you don't have to think about the anchor. Everything will be fine. Sometimes weird things happen and your picture will suddenly move around to another part of your document. It'll move on to a new page. When I used to teach a similar class in person, I would always have, whenever we wanted to put the next page in the document, I was always like, someone's picture is going to go down to the second page. And I was never wrong. It always seemed to happen at least once. And the reasons for that, why it happens, can be complicated, but the basic thing that happened is somehow you moved this anchor. And the anchor is usually not visible unless you have the picture active. In earlier versions of Word, even if you had the picture active, the anchor was not visible. You'd have to go on and you'd have to go in and turn on something called the editing marks for you to see the anchor. But if this happens, you can find the anchor, move it back to you can just click and drag an anchor around like this. So you just move it back to the original location and your picture should go back to where it's supposed to be. But that's just so you know that this is a thing that happens in Word. And it's also one of the reasons why I always say, if you have to do a document that has a lot of pictures in it and a lot of that kind of formatting, you don't want to be using Word. It will drive you crazy. You would be best off using Publisher, which if you have Office, you also have Publisher. That's the desktop publishing software, and it's much more suited to doing like a document with multiple pictures in it. But ours is now, our picture is in place. And we're going to move on now to the second page of our document. And I'm going to do this. You can just hit the Enter key repeatedly to create a second page, but I think the better thing is to insert a page break. And the easiest way to do that is Control Enter. And we're down on our second page. Okay. So you see up here, we have our header space again, and it's just saying type here. Because remember, when we created our document, we said we wanted the header to be different on the first page than we wanted for the rest of the document. This is because we want to put a footer on the second page that we're not going to have that we don't want on the first page. So now we're on our page, and we want to get our header and footer in place on the second page. So we're going to start with the header. I'm just going to go into that. And because the header is going to actually be exactly the same as the previous header, we're just going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go up here into navigation, go back to that page, highlight the header, copy it, go back to my second section, and then just paste in the new header. It's got a little extra space I'm going to get rid of, but we're back there. So now we have our second page header in place. Now we're going to do our footer. So I'm going to click here where it says go to footer, and it's going to drop me down to the bottom of the page. And I'm just going to put a little information about the document in the footer. I'm going to go here to document info, and what I'm going to put in is the file name of the document. So right now the document is called document 1. I'm also on the right-hand side going to put in the page number. And I'm not going to use this command because if I do that, it won't let me put any other information in the document. I'm going to go here to quick parts. I'm going to go to field. And from this list of all the different things I can include, I'm going to include page. And I click my format here. I'm going to say it right there. So now we have the page number here. And so notice here right now it says document 1. That's because I haven't actually given this document a name yet. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Save As. And I'm going to save this in Documents. And I'm going to call this and I'm going to click Save there. And if I give this a minute, that should update. Might take a while. I'm going to manually do it just to demonstrate. Normally I'll do it eventually, but notice, but it will change this to whatever the file name is. So if I've changed it again, it would change back to that, to a different file name. Okay, any questions on the header and footer? Okay, Abby, what's your question?
It's actually on the image. So you actually go into the position of the image and then change like that.
Mm-hmm.
But could you also like do like the double tab and it will change it?
Double tap?
Yeah.
So double clicking, you can drag it. I don't think you can double click on the picture to change it.
No, double tab. So before the picture, you will say.
Oh, hit the tab key?
Yeah, 2 times.
I don't know if that would work. Actually, I don't think it would. Because pictures are a little, I can test it right now. So if I move it back to its original, it's actually not its original position. So yeah, see, here's the thing. Pictures work different than text. So you could do that way multiple times. It is moving it, but I do not recommend that. With pictures, you really want to use the absolute positioning as much as you possibly can. And you can get even more specific on the positioning. Like I'm just moving that as the upper right corner. If you really want to get into it, I'm going to go down here. You can set specific like 1 inch from this margin, or you can get really into setting absolute positions to where you want it to be. Okay. This also has a lock anchor option. So that actually, if you check off that box and click OK, that should keep the anchor from moving. But yeah, you can position it a lot of different ways, but I really don't recommend using the tab or anything like that in Word. I think that's just going to end up causing you more problems than doing the other kind of positioning. Okay.
Okay.
I'd even go for clicking and dragging it out before using the tab key. Okay, so let's go back to our second page here. Now, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating a form that people can mail in to register for this event. We already had, in the Excel class we did last week, we were talking about creating an address book. So I'm going to go and actually pull up the address book for just a moment. Okay, because I just want to make note of something. We have a bunch of information here and it's entered in a specific order. So you see last name, first name, street address, apartment, city, etc. And what we want to do is we want to make it so that the people we presume will be getting in these filled in forms are going to be adding information to the spreadsheet. So we want to keep it in the same order. So when they're lowering down the form, they're entering in the information for each field as they go through. So we want these things to be the information in the form to be in the same order as the information in our spreadsheet here. Okay, so we're going to go back to Word. And we're going to start creating our form. First thing, let's see, we're going to start here with a 2-column, 7-row table to start our form. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to go here to the Table command. And you see it drops this grid down, and from this grid, I'm going to select what I want to include in our table. So I want 2 columns, and then I want it to go down for 7 rows, like that. Okay, so now we have the first part of our table. And we're going to start by giving the table a title. So this is 2021 Summer Day Trail Illustration. And I'm not going to do anything formatting with this right now. I'm going to first put all the information I want in here, and then I'm going to then do the formatting of the table. And so from the sheet, we're going to start with last name. Oops, don't want to hit enter. First name, street address, city, state, zip, country, phone. We're running out of rows, so I'm going to go back, but we can just hit the tab key and it'll add them. Email, and finally shirt size. Okay. So now we have a table place to start, and now we're going to start formatting this so it looks more like a form that people could fill out. Obviously, right now, if you can imagine trying to fill this out, it would be kind of difficult. So the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to start by getting rid of all the borders in this table so we can see what we're working on. I'm going to do that first by selecting the table. I'm going over here to the borders, and I'm just going to say no border here. Now you'll notice we still see these like dotted lines. These are grid lines. These are not visible when you print it out. We just see the text, but this allows us to do some work in terms of aligning and figuring out where things can go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is work on this title. Now we want this to be bold, we want it to be big and shaded, and we want it to go across the whole top of the table. To do that, we need to make these 2 cells into 1 cell. So I've got them selected. I'm going to go here to Table Tools. Notice here we have another contextual tab. This one is called the Table Tools tab, and it'll be active as long as we're working on our table. And we're going to go here to the Layout tab, and I'm going to go here to the Merge Cells command. This is going to make that cell 1. So notice the dotted line that was separating them has disappeared. And now we're going to do a little more design thing. I'm going to make this bold. I'm going to up the size of it a little bit. And I'm going to add some shading. And you can do that here. There's another place you can do it as well, but we're going to do it from here. I'm going to click on there. And I'm just going to pick a blue from here. And lastly, I'm going to center our text there. So now we have the title for our form right in place. Okay, all right. I'm actually going to make the rest of this font a little bit bigger too, just up to 12. So I think it needs to be a little clearer. Okay, now we're going to make the columns a little bit smaller. So I'm going to move this line just by clicking and dragging. Notice when I move my mouse pointer on it, it's changing shape. And when you get this 2 lines, the line with the 2 arrows, you can just click and drag it over just so it's closer to what we have here. So now we have these cells, and we have a lot of space over here where people could theoretically write in their information. Okay. We also need to add another piece of information. So if we go back to our, let me make sure I'm sharing the whole screen, yes. So we go back to our spreadsheet. We'll notice that we have a field here for apartment, and we did not put that on our form, so we need to add this now. I think that can share line space with street address, but I need another column to do that. So I'm just going to click in this particular cell, and instead of merging it like I did before, I am going to split it so it goes into more than 1 cell. Just going to go and split this cell into 2 columns. There you go. So now we have another little split there. Okay. We want this to APT for apartment. Again, we want to make sure we get the font changes so it matches the rest of the document. Oops, I didn't do that at this point. And now I'm also going to move this over a little bit. It's going to be a little tricky getting the mouse pointer in the right place. We don't need all that space for apartment. That looks good. And I'm actually going to now split the cell again. And I'm doing this for reasons for when I put the borders in, I'm going to need that cell split for that purpose. So I'm going to split the cell, again, 2 columns, and then just move this over here. Okay, so now we have street address and apartment. We have city, state, zip together. Now I have this whole field for country, and then we have a line for phone. And I think those two can be on the same line. There'll be enough room in the form for that to work. So I'm going to do some cell splitting again. And once I do that, I'm going to move phone up here. Split the cells again. And move that line. Oops, where did that go? Move that line to over here. So now we have all our cells separate out there. We now have an empty row here that we don't need. So I'm going to get rid of that. Just going to select it and then go to delete. Say delete row, and that row is now gone. Okay. And we have space for email. We have shirt size. And instead of letting people write in their search size, we're going to give them some options. And we have 6 different shirt sizes. So I'm going to split that cell into 6 total columns. And I'm going to put a size in each one. So we have extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, finally, extra large. And I'm also going to center these. So each one of these is centered in their cell. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab here, go to Center, and now each of these options is centered in a cell. And I'm going to add a line, just a little bit of information search size, where I'm going to say circle 1. It's dropping us down to another line, but don't worry. I'm actually going to do that deliberately right there. And now I'm going to do a little bit more adjustment. So we're thinking of this form as something people are going to fill out using a pen. And right now, that's going to be very cramped because the rows are very narrow. So we want to make the rows bigger. I'm going to do that. I'm going to select all these rows. These are the ones we want to make bigger. I'm going to go to my table tab, table layout. And I'm going here to the section where it says cell size. And I want to go here to height. And I want to make this bigger. I'm going to move this up to 0.5. And that's fine. But I don't like that these words are lined up on the top of the cells. So when you're working in a table, you have layout options. In addition to left, center, and right, you also have top, bottom, and middle. And we're going to change this so that we have bottom alignment. And I'm going to go here, though this might change. All right, we're going to use this one here. That's going to be yeah, it's not letting me get as down in the weeds as I want to. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'm just going to do the here where it's going to align it on the bottom. So now it's all aligned on the bottom. But notice when I did that, it moved these back to the left. So I'm just going to do those again, go to home and go to center. So yeah, it's a little tricky because the table alignment options are a little bit different than the straight alignment options. So yeah, I had to go back and forth and do that thing twice. That's probably also going to happen when I start putting the borders in for this. So before I move on to doing the borders for our form, do you have any questions? Okay, let's work on doing some borders. So I'm going to start. I want to put a border around the whole outside of this particular table. To do that, I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going back here to the tables layout tab. Oh, wait, sorry, I want design tab for this. And I'm going to go here to borders. And I kind of want this to be relatively thick, so I'm going to pick that there. Let's make it a little heavier. And from here, I'm just going to click on here, and I'm going to say outside borders. And this is just going to put a border around the whole outside of my document. I also want that same thick border to go between this header and the rest of the thing. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click so I'm just in that cell. And then from the borders option, I'm going to pick the bottom border. That's just going to drop the thick border there. Now I want to add the lines for that people are going to write on in this form. And we don't need those to be as thick. So we're going to change the line weight down to a point. And then we're going to just drop in on every place we want that line to be. We're going to just put a bottom border in place. So right now in the drop down, it's going to default to bottom border. So I'm going to click there, and it's going to put that there for last name. Same thing for first name, street address. Notice it's doing it to only the one cell. So I do this for street address. I also have to go over here to apartment and do it as well there. And we can go here to city. Now this is a thing that happens sometimes where if you put in a bottom border, it takes away this because a bottom border can also be a top border, depending on what cell you're in. And if that happens, you just go back and add them in again. I think that happens because I've got this cell is split here and this cell isn't. And actually, if that's the case, that should happen here as well. Yep, that's the thing. So yeah, so if you have cells that are split, you got to watch that. Okay. It's because the settings for the one cell is overriding the settings for the two separate cells. But we got that all in place. And yeah, that looks good. And if we go here, I'm going to turn the grid lines off so we don't see them anymore. And that'll give us a clear idea of what our form looks like. It looks pretty good, I think. Yeah, it kind of works. Yeah, I like that form. Okay, so that would be how you can use a table to create a form. Are there any questions? Yes, Avi, what's your question?
Can I change the style of the border?
Mm-hmm. If you wanted to do a different style of the border, you could do that as well. So if you, let's say we want a double line here and go to border styles. And let's see if you wanted that one, You'd have to then, so you could do actually using the border painter here so that you can actually draw it once in place if you want to. But yeah, you can change it however you want it to be.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so that is about it. Last thing I'm just going to say about printing. So we're just going to go to File here and Print. And you'll notice here, this is showing you both pages of your document. So you notice here, we've got the headers. You can look at the headers. And you can see here, we have our footer down here and the page number here. So yeah, so this is a good place just to get an overview, make sure nothing weird happened with your pictures, and make sure nothing moved anywhere else or anything else looks a little bit odd in it. So if you think it looks okay, you can just go and print it and you're done. That's about it for this class. Is there any questions before the end? Okay then, so that's it for this class. Thank you for coming. Again, I apologize for the problem yesterday. Hopefully we won't have a technical issue like that again. Thanks for coming, and I'm just gonna wrap things up now. And again, like I said, this video will be on our YouTube channel within a few days. Thanks.
What's the name of the YouTube channel?
Just search for Parsippany Library, you'll find it there.
Okay.
Okay.